You're really coastal, right?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Transportation Authority canceled the regular board meeting this morning. 8:30 a.m. Call to order. We have an invocation by Willie Jean. We all stand up.
Let's stand.
You're speaking for God down there, Lily.
I will speak to him, not for him.
There you go.
Thank you, Lord. It's another day that you've blessed us, and it's another day that you've kept us. And we thank you not only for this day, but from our very beginning. As we begin to make decisions about this board and what's going to happen with our system and its riders, we ask that you guide us, not only with our head, but with our heart as well, because we realize that the final decision, whatever it turns out to be, is in your hand. We thank you for this day, and we thank you for this board and the staff who work so diligently to guide this organization. Amen.
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 All pledge allegiance to the
flag
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At least to clarify that God is he. My wife does not agree, but it's,
It's a spirit, so it can be he or she.
Hi, how are you?
How you doing, baby? How you doing, buddy? How you doing?
Just in time, I was trying to move this along.
where's Nick?
Nikki is here.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
No, Nick, he
No
said.
public comment then. Employee recognition.
We gotta call the roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's all
Roll
right.
call.
Catherine D'Angelo. Here. Sid Blackwelder.
Here.
Daryl Eichhoff.
Present.
Debbie Gasquet. Here. Wilbur James.
Here.
Lily Jean Johnson.
Here.
Marvin King. Joseph Lazara.
Here.
Rob Sheehan.
Here.
Bernard Silverman.
Here.
Ivory Wilson.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Okay.
You're just screwing up so that
Yeah.
it's got a low bar. So I feel bad looking in. I can appreciate that.
No problem. There's no visitors still at this time. So there'll be no public comment. Employee recognition.
We had some, but we've got to, we need to push it to next month, so
Okay.
nothing for today.
Nothing for today. We'll have approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? The minutes passed.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if the board will indulge me, can we suspend the meeting for about 15 minutes and go out and check out the new addition to our fleet?
Oh,
You need a motion for Steve too.
I think the motion was just going to be.
Do we have a second?
Yep, second.
Come on out.
All in favor?
Aye.
No, it's self.
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to go back to employee recognition.
Sign-in sheet?
Didn't you? There it is.
I'd like to recognize, go back to number 6 and recognize Brian and his staff.
Amen.
Yes.
Well, I think when you get that out on the road,
Now, don't embarrass him.
you've got a lot of positive comment as well. from the
Wait till
right.
they see
Oh, I
that
hope so.
down, wait till they see that in downtown, they've never seen anything like that on
Yeah.
this place.
We'll make a
Drivers
statement.
gonna be well trained before they go out
Oh,
there.
yes.
Yeah, we are doing some state of the coast meetings next week to get people checked out on it. So we'll get drivers in here and show them around and
Yeah, that's gonna be kinda hard, turning around from those corners.
Mr. Chair, I would like to do an evaluation, even though I know it's late, I still want to do one and turn it in.
Okay.
Can you recap the scores again once I turn mine in?
Did you turn one in already?
I didn't turn one, I didn't,
You didn't turn one in, but
I mean, can I,
we'll do it in executive session.
okay,
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anybody that can get this?
Okay. Is there,
Mr. Chair, let me
yeah, go
let me
ahead.
commend this board. I haven't been there, but I like to see the board doing an excellent job from what I can see. I want to let people know that from the heart. And,
Thank you, Mickey.
and the staff is doing a good job, so I am really happy.
Definitely.
Thank you.
I don't want to be the first driver who gets a scratch on that bus.
Yeah, because they'll fall into the wrath of Tom even more than me.
Yeah.
Tom's like, oh.
Okay,
Oh, everyone gets one? Oh,
Well,
okay.
they were supposed to mail them out here.
Oh, okay, okay.
They didn't do it.
All right, I didn't know.
So enjoy your name on there? On the front of it? No, on the evaluation. Turn it around.
We got them all.
Will we
Your
have any,
evaluation should be in there.
Taking the train up north, a week and a half.
you want to look at it?
Yes, probably.
I'm actually going, upstate New York, but I'm going to.
Do we need a motion to?
No, I'm going to,
Go back in the session.
Okay,
You should have just got.
Newark.
are we checking back in?
Newark.
Yeah.
I used to live there, but that's where the train station is. My friends are just outside Newark.
The meeting.
And who's it
What
for?
do you do when they
That's
install
the
it?
main
Everyone or
station
what? Did you
there.
get one?
Hey, everybody, we're gonna start back.
Everybody got a packet.
It's not
All
bad.
right,
Okay.
now I see.
Are we gonna have any comments on the service committee, even though we didn't meet, anything on the service impact?
Not for Pat.
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Finance committee report?
Yes. We had a pretty good meeting last week.
Pretty good.
Amazing.
Great, great. No accomplishment.
That's right. So we had a,
Tony the Tiger's real upset.
Tony,
Oh, no. Great.
Oh, my goodness.
so I think we had a couple of discussions about some of the items that we've been tracking over the past few months. Obviously, vehicle maintenance is one of those issues. So as you look through your, say that's page 2 of the report, just bring your attention to obviously a couple of those items that I think that they're somewhat in line. There's nothing as far as an alarm going off. Either they're low on dollar value or their percentages isn't too far after where it should be. Again, with the exception of the maintenance as we try to keep that in mind. So hopefully that new bus will help bring that back down. The good thing is, as we get into the summer months, some of the items here, the budget is a little higher for those summer months. Ron and Brian can speak to that. Any questions on anything from the income statement?
Yeah, my biggest areas of concern really are maintenance and fuel, which are obviously maintenance and operating costs respectively. I think the biggest issue under fuel is that I underestimated the fuel efficiency of the buses. Instead of, I think we used based it on 5 miles per gallon, and they're getting in the neighborhood of 4.2, 4.3 miles per gallon, the DAR buses, which is,
So you overestimated the efficiency of the vehicles.
well, if it was 5 miles per gallon, that would be higher, so I was thinking I underestimated the efficiency.
You thought it would be.
It's lower than it actually is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know, that's okay. On the ball.
Honestly, I kind of toyed around with how I was going to say that. But it's sort of like, are we turning the AC up or down? So I just wanted to, if I could,
Absolutely, please.
hijack your
Yeah.
portion of the proceedings. I just want to let everybody know that Ron and I are, it's a work in progress. We've been looking at the budget. We have raises coming up. I want to make sure that we're able to do at least a 3% across the board for our folks because people are doing a great job. And so we've worked that into it, we've worked additional funding into fuel, and we are thinking that we need about an additional $55,000 to complete the year. And just in time, I have a list up here on the board of additional funding that's coming into the agency. That 55,000 includes all the raises that we want to do, getting additional money for fuel, doing some more on preventive maintenance. I think we want to add a couple of engine overhauls into that mix.
These are revenue figures, right?
These are revenue figures.
And do you have, with South Carolina Works, I assume that's the grant?
That's they bought 2 wraps from us, so we've got 24,000 in additional
They're the two reps.
additional advertising money.
And have you added the cost of the wraps?
That's separate.
And on the other side, though, when you say 55,000?
The advertiser pays for that, so above and beyond the 24,000.
Yeah, the advertiser pays for the wrap and the removal of the wrap directly to the vendor.
Is this gonna be on the new buses?
No, the dart buses. We'll assign 2 dart buses.
You're gonna raise the price for the new buses.
All these figures been there,
These are all in the, these are all in,
you will be getting.
we'll be getting.
And what is
These are all
what is
done
the
with. Department of Employment and Workforce.
Okay.
So that is, so the other thing I want to say that was added in the budget is from August 15th through September 30th, additional operating costs for operating service into Bucksport and to Loris,
Yeah.
for which we're getting funding from both. You know, we won't use the entire amount of the 7,500 from Loris, nor the, well, and we will use the 830.
Have we gotten that grant?
833. We haven't gotten that grant, so those would come off the board, but we know Friday whether or not we got it. We've heard through the grapevine that we're close to it, so hopefully we'll see. We have public meetings starting next week
Next Thursday.
to go and talk to people about it, and hopefully we'll know by then, obviously, whether or not we're actually going to do it.
When you say Bucksport, do you mean like community center Bucksport? Is that
Yeah,
where we're
that's
gonna go
exactly
down?
where we'll.
That's about the only place I can imagine turning anything around.
Right, and these services will start with smaller vehicles.
I hope, yeah.
And hopefully we'll generate some ridership, and if we ever need to go to a larger vehicle, then yes, we'll need to, you know, we'll only be able to penetrate Bucksport to the community center. This train, I just want to explain really quickly
Is
this
there ever
transfer.
somebody named Buck? It's Bucksport, Bucks, you know.
Yeah, it's a Buck
Buck
family.
Was there a guy, there was
Yeah,
a Buck
family.
family?
I'm not familiar.
They were shipbuilders.
I know it's irrelevant, I was just thinking about it yesterday, as I was driving by.
They're shipbuilders.
I just wanted to explain for a second the transfers from county capital funds. This is, and that 10,000 is a low figure. I think it might actually end up being more than that. But by virtue of getting this additional understanding with the county that we can do engine transmission packages as a part of the $1 million in capital funds, we want to try to pull off at least 2 of those by the end of the fiscal year. And so we'll be able to pull over some money from the county on the local match side for some of these fairly large maintenance items, and therefore transfer some of the $1,055,000 back over to operations and
Right.
type of
That'd
thing.
be,
So that'll
we
help us.
transfer it in our fiscal year, but it'd be their new fiscal year.
Right,
Okay.
right. But remember, we kind of changed tunes last time about, you know, we're spending the money when we get it. And so the other thing I wanted to show y'all, and this has been the point that I made to the county as well as City of Conway and others, and I'll be going to Myrtle Beach as well to tell, and Georgetown hopefully at some point. The top of the chart is FY17, and it doesn't include our additional operating cost or maintenance cost on this chart. But as I showed you, we've got plenty of money in the hopper to deal with FY17. What my concern was in the illustration of the reason why I showed this chart is that I have a serious shortfall. If I paid for admin and I paid for maintenance, and I could have done it either way. I could have paid for operating and showed the shortfall over here. I mean, in fact, in reality, it's kind of across these 3 budgets, really. But this is the most efficient way of utilizing federal and state dollars if I pay for these, because some of this gets paid at 80%, all of this gets paid at 80%. We have about a $300,000 shortfall in FY18, so that's, over the summer, we're gonna work on closing that gap. And part of that is gonna be reducing expenses, obviously, across the board. I'm hoping that the new buses will lower this number. We're making some changes here that I'll talk about. But I mean, this is the issue, and this is why we need growth in our local funding more than anything else. The other reason why we need growth in our local funding is these are federal dollars coming. Our annual allocation for 5307, which is the urban side of our system, is really closer to 1.4, 1.5 million. You may remember when I got here, we had actually 2 years of funding under 5307. So I've been whittling away at that on a number of fronts. And so for FY19, we want to lower this number as best we can in 18. But in 19, we have the money for 18. But in 19, this is going to go down to 1.5 million. That's another 300,000. So another 400,000. So we're going to have to find ways to close that gap in 19. So I'm hopeful that between now and before we have to do our budget for 19, that we'll have some local funding in place. And so this is what I'm trying to show elected officials what the need is. The other part of this is the state side. This is 5311, the rural program. And you see that, I mean, not only is it not level funded, it's getting smaller. Now, one thing in 19 that may happen is, you probably don't remember this, but in FY15 we had 900,000 in 5311, and that's because there was a second slug of 5311 funds where they transferred statewide inner-city money, a different pot of money over to us. They're talking about doing that again for FY19. So that actually has some impact on 18 because that would start next July 1st, and so the last 3 months you might get a little extra slug of 5311 funding. So another way to close this gap. So it's just kind of a state of flux. And then the other, so I highlighted these just to show how we're using local funds. And so you can see that I got some wiggle room here because we've got a little bit more than this coming to us next year. Hopefully Conway will be able to help us in FY18, and so I'm not too worried about that number. Here's where I'm hopefully making the transfer happen. We've got the $1 million in capital funds coming from the from the county. So I'm hopeful that I can knock this down, $10,000, $25,000 from some of these big maintenance jobs and slide some of these dollars over here from the other pot from the county. Does that make sense? Clear as mud? Okay.
How about mileage? Will we get better mileage on the new bus?
Presumably, but remember, I haven't looked at what the Gilligs are doing, the old buses. I mean, the bulk of our fleet now is going to be those DART buses, so we'll have to budget our fuel based on a lower. So we won't make that mistake in 18. I mean, I put in a pretty healthy jump in operating costs. I mean, this is salaries, this is fuel. I mean, we put in more than 3% or about a 3% jump.
Brian,
In operating costs. Yes, sir.
the expectations, you were saying that 2018 and 2019, there'll be a variation in the amount of money that you're going to be receiving. Am I right on the end?
Well, what I'm hopeful to do, I mean, I've got a gap in 18 that we've got to fix. We're sort of doing this 1 year at a time. It's kind of the nature of the beast at this point. So we'll hopefully come to finance in July with a plan, a strategy on how we're closing that gap. But the point I was trying to make is that this gap may get even higher in 19. And obviously the goal is to not cut any surface at this point. So we need to get some help from the locals because it's not, the federal dollars are not changing.
Right. I got
And there's a couple of other things that happened in 19, like we come off of, I think there's 3, I'm looking at you, Ron. There's 3 different things that we're paying back from past issues. The big one is the $75,000 a year for the bus shelters. That continues beyond 19. I think 19 might be the last year for that, 20 maybe. But there's the 30,000 that we're paying the Department of
Human Services.
Human Services, thank you. That comes off this year, so we don't have that in 18, so that's a $30,000. All local funds go into that. And then there's another one that comes off.
Like a bluebird disposal or something.
$34,000
Yeah,
a year that
disposal
comes off
pickup,
for
so
FY
you're-
19.
Yeah,
So we're in the process of cleaning all that up.
Brian, if we get that grant this week or next week and begin the sewer oil services, what's the cost to us of those beyond what we get
It's,
from?
over the course of 18 months, it's about $50,000 total. So
Wow.
that's 3 fiscal years. So we got a little bit this year, we have a little bit, and most of it next year, and then a little bit in 19.
That's
So-
net, that's after the revenue has been taken.
Right, after the revenue.
So, you know, we're gonna run it, and it really depends on usage, obviously, but we're gonna run it basically 1 trip a day in each, or 2 trips a day in each direction, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening to both locations. And then we'll do a demand response trip midday, so if you get a hold of us, ahead of time, we'll run that trip. Even if it's for 1 person, we'll run it, but it's budgeted as if we're doing that trip every day. And I'm presuming that we won't do it every day.
We do need to talk about raising salaries for mechanics. I mean, I'm watching buses go down at a rate that I hadn't seen the previous year.
It's crazy.
And if you've got empty mechanic position, singular, I thought you had one, or do you have 2 now?
Well, we have 1, but we're talking about even adding a second one above and beyond that.
Yeah,
If we have to pay them more, we have to pay
Right.
them more.
We'll come to finance
that's what I want to
with,
see in the budget.
we'll come to finance with a strategy on that, next month.
And that should be separate from the 3%. I don't
Yes,
think.
sir.
Okay.
And we have, honestly, we have a similar issue in drivers. We were down at the Georgetown Economic Development, and I asked her, I was like, what constitutes a reasonable paying job? And she said $16 an hour. We're averaging in the low 14s. So I have a few drivers that make more than $16 an hour. So, it would be nice to do, a little bit of a correction. Maybe we don't make that whole correction, but we'll try to move towards, higher paying job. And I have a number of drivers who are on the cusp of retirement. So we're gonna be left in the lurch if we don't start generating some CDL drivers.
What is school bus driver's hourly rate?
I think it recently went up, which is also hurting us. The other thing that's hurting us is Uber. We got a lot of, we didn't get as many school bus drivers over the summer because they're doing Uber over the summer. And they can be their own boss and do their own hours, and we're not nearly as attractive, even if they aren't making as much money as they could here. So,
Yeah, but the risk of sounding insensitive, at the end of the day, the first priority needs to be getting the buses running. I understand you've got to have somebody to drive it, but
Okay.
the skill level that's necessary
right.
has to be paid for. And did you ever follow up on Daryl's suggestion of moving at least some of the mechanic operations to part-time late in the night?
Well, we're just at the point of trying to find
Find anybody.
bodies. And so, we've been talking with Tom about, increasing that rate and then, dealing with the fallout, based on getting our existing mechanics certified to do certain things. And as they get these certifications, giving them the bumps, getting them closer to that person. But whoever we hire, we want them to be a diagnostician. And that's really what we're lacking back there.
You get those who work, the beauty of the part-time worker without paying the fringe. And Ron told us last time, the fringe rate is about 35% for the mechanic, maybe
Even higher.
40.
Yeah, it was 40% for the
We can pay
mechanics.
$3 or $4 an hour more for a part-timer without benefits and not upset the permanent employees. I just cannot believe there's not mechanics who got their day job who would work from 8 to midnight here.
To
For
be
$20
honest,
an hour.
I haven't had that discussion with Tom
I
about
think
whether or not that type of person exists.
You don't know till you ask, but I tell you, I had the same thing in the nursing shortage, and that's how I filled my gaps. I could get the guy got off the expensive St. Louis Metropolitan Hospitals, I paid him $4 more, and they come give me a half of a shift for my end.
Everybody down here works 2 to 3 jobs.
Right.
We
Well,
don't want them overworked and then get hurt at the job either.
That's true too.
Well, we're not talking overtime with that model. We're talking.
No, I know.
Right.
But with that person, he's saying
Yeah.
they're full-time plus us working.
Yeah, if they're working somewhere else to get their benefits, then,
Right.
you know, there's some reliability sometimes, issues with that, because they do get tired. They're working two jobs. But, we'll add that to the mix.
Okay.
So any other questions about this?
Daryl's gonna be worse than Bernie on things.
And it's a good thing we're putting him into a leadership position.
We did, $129,900 shortfall, federal government.
Yeah, that is, stuff that we've spent that we haven't been able to get. We've got, the bulk of that is the transit center. So it's money that we're owed, that we have to go get, it, plus we have the grant in place to get it. So that was the amendment to the 5307 grant, which is in the works, if you're looking at it.
I would like to emphasize,
Hang on a second, make it easy.
Oh,
It's not a shortfall, it's just showing that we haven't gotten cash that we're owed on that.
Yeah.
So we're just under budget on the revenue side because we haven't gotten the cash yet, but we're gonna get it. I'm sorry?
No, I like to say what I feel. I think we need to let the CEO come up with his plan as to how he thinks things need to work. We all got ideas and suggestions, but I think he runs the company. Let him tell us what he thinks. And then we have to look at it and see whether or not we agree with it, but I don't think we need to try to tell him what to do. Not tell him what to do, I think we need, that's my opinion, I think let them come up with the ideas. We don't want to frustrate the guy because he got a lot on the table, but that is my thoughts on it. I
Well,
think we need
the
to look at
labor side
policy.
of this is gonna be a huge part of this budget discussion as we go through
Well,
summer.
well, if you listen to what I'm saying is that our job is policy, it's not about running the company. And that's where I'm at. Let him come up with a plan, and then he'll bring it to us, and then we can adopt whatever he's trying to implement.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you for your help. Thank you.
All right, any other, items for the income statement?
Did you replace the sheets?
I did want to discuss a little bit, I guess, sort of from the balance sheets, more of the cash. I think our liquidity point is
Sucks.
still. Looking for a better word, but
Why are you mincing words?
So yeah, when you look at our ratios, our quick ratio especially, which represents our cash, where we're at on hand, as well as, so I'm looking at pages 7 and 8. So we get pretty close to emergency there.
Last week, just along the, I'm sorry.
No, you
No, I'm saying we're getting below 1 on the current.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're far, we're.
You're really following that.
0.5.
Page 8.
Yeah, so
But
page 7 shows
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
quick
you, Marvin,
ratio.
we created a monster.
Yeah, I know. And page 8 looks at.
We have been looking at this, obviously, on an hourly basis at this point, but the funny thing is the bus purchase might be able to help us on this a little bit. So we've got another version of this that we worked on last week that,
How does the bus purchase?
well, is rolling in the cash. We have 30 days to pay these guys. But I have this on property now, so I can bill the county for their portion of that.
Okay.
So it's not, we're still paying everything on time, but it's just gonna smooth things out. It's gonna keep our balance a lot higher than what it shows here. We put in for a 5307 draw yesterday or last week, or when was that, Tuesday?
Well, last night at 6 o'clock.
So, we've got some cash coming in,
Exactly.
and, we should have that grant, the amendment squared away here in the next week or so, hopefully, a couple of weeks.
And what
So
about?
we pulled 91,000 for the transit center right away, once that hits.
And what about the county funds? Were we able to?
That's, yeah, I was gonna ask you about that too. We waiting on the agreement to be signed? Or?
Yeah, we're waiting on the agreement, but I will get in touch with them this afternoon and give you guys an update later on this week on where we stand with that.
They put in, the only thing that concerns me about that, they put in a request, they do a quarterly review of just payables and things like that, just a little mini quickie audit or whatever. And they're gonna do that on the 19th, so we gotta make sure that that doesn't
They're not
hold
waiting for
up
that before
the
they give us
yeah,
money.
because that would be not good.
I'll get that squared away today.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the, trying to get an early payment from the county?
Yeah.
Well, but even the agreement says the 15th, and, you know, if they're coming on the 19th, I would suspect that it would be two separate things, but we need to,
Yeah, I confirmed
Double
the
back and
date
make
with
sure
them. I think if we had
they
the
did.
date confirmed with them, then.
yeah, we should be fine.
Yeah, we should be okay. Good.
So it is a concern.
Yeah.
So we're working through it, and it's gonna be a concern probably through the end of August, when we're able to start drawing on the rural side of things again. That's really what causes this problem in the summertime, is that we can't, we're running the rural side of this strictly on local funds. And so we're, part of that budget, another moving part, is whether or not we wanna kind of slow down the draws on the state side, so that we're not creating this problem at the end of the year. So we're gonna hopefully do a cash flow analysis, basically, so we're gonna kind of plan out the whole year and see what makes sense.
When are you anticipating raises beginning?
July 1st. We may not get them in place by then, but they'll be retroactive to the first of the month. Or whatever the closest pay date is on that.
Isn't that, maybe I'm not quite as compassionate as I should be, but wouldn't you want to tie that back to your fiscal year start as opposed to July 1, when you know going into each summer, because of that we're going to have this bump? I mean,
Yeah, but the cash flow, well,
I mean, you could do that October 1 with probably less hard feelings, as long as there's not a lot of people getting a 3% across the board at the agency level
right.
in Horry County that I'm aware of. The state is basically doing nothing for state employees.
I don't really see it having a huge impact on cash flow necessarily, but, you know,
Well,
you make
what
a
does
decent point about.
3% figure out for a month, let's say?
It's 25,000 a year. I mean,
How much did it?
25,000.
25, each percent is 25,000, so it's 75,000 for the year at 3%.
Per year, so then you divide by 12 and then multiply by 1 or 2.
But we told
Five,
these
six
people
thousand.
it was effective raise July 1st, I think.
Well, I mean, I think that's, I haven't really advertised it necessarily, but I think that's what people are expecting.
It's like $6,000 a month, something like that, 6,200.
Yeah, that's not gonna help or hurt a lot.
So, I think
We
what,
can do it anytime during.
the other issue though is we've been doing this at that date, and you might get some pushback if you,
Say it again, Ron?
we've been kind of historically putting the raises in place the 1st of July, so I'm sure we get some pushback if we extended that out to October 1st, so. I mean, so, you know, it's a tiny thing of 18 grand.
We don't want anything to change.
Certainly the message this year is, look, guys, we were this close to getting additional support locally. And, you know, we don't have it for FY18, so, you know, the raises are based on what we can do, not necessarily what we wanna do. And, you know, stick with it as best you can.
But if you needed to, you could do an October 1 retroactive to July 1, at least if there is that much for cash flow.
But that's our new year, we should go by that.
I mean, I think that's the point that Rob is saying, and, you know, I mean, most of the people who've been working haven't had a raise in a year, you know, as of July 1st. And so, I mean, I kind of view it as a little bit of a shot in the arm as we're going into our business, you know, our busy season. So we'll look at that, you know.
Your call, yeah. You just have to explore all the options. It's kind of hard on the one hand to say we're holding our breath in terms of liquidity, and then say, yeah, but $18,000 isn't going to break the bank.
But I think a lot of our drivers are holding their breath at the end of every month.
Yeah.
So this
That
is
is-
3%, it's not a
yeah.
lot, but.
Yeah, it doesn't, we
It
get
helps,
more,
but-
you know, thanks for it. Thanks.
Whatever.
Always having
It's
this.
not an exciting thing.
Yeah, but you
Yeah.
have to care about staff morale, you know, you really do.
I
And
know.
things are going well and it's, you know, going in a good direction and you want to keep going that way.
Well, yeah, but it, there's nothing to say they have to have a increment every year.
No.
I haven't had one in years.
But you're not living with a family on $14 an hour.
No.
No.
I'm living with a family of maybe $10 an hour.
Well,
Yeah.
No?
Retirees.
Give her a raise.
No, but I'm just saying that, you know,
Well,
I don't think it has anything to do with morale because I think how they're treated doesn't mean financially.
Right.
Because our drivers are making more money than they made years ago and they're being treated much better and they got more and they have health insurance, they have a pension, they have a lot of things that they never had.
right. Well, from a driver's perspective though, their pension's going up 1% on
Right.
July 1st. So at the very least, we want to cover that, which we are. And
Well, I mean, you can.
it's going
you
up
can do-
2% for the agency.
You can do whatever you please, that's up to you, but I'm just saying that there's nothing written that says that every year they have to have an increment, you know.
I like to echo what Deb said. If there's an expectation that they're getting a raise,
Morale.
you could hurt morale terribly bad. I mean, things are going well, let's not derail what we've got going.
I think the drivers understand, though, if we don't have the money, they can't.
Right.
You know, they'd rather have less than get nothing.
That's
Well,
right.
and that's, you know, like I said, that's part of the message, that we're doing what we can. I mean, to be honest with you, you give, you know, a 35-cent raise to somebody who's making $14, it doesn't really amount to much.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I get more flack, you know, oh, that's it, that's all you got. But
Right.
this is what we can do.
Right.
And if you guys can stick with it, you know, I'm working on the revenue side, we'll take care of you.
But we keep mentioning drivers, isn't it more than just the drivers?
Well, and it's not just, you're right, it's not just mechanics and others, so.
People that, you know, count on that this month.
Your first slide that had the added revenue, is that all money that is basically in the bank now?
I mean, I guess except for the due, the 8333, because we haven't actually gotten the grant. Everything else is in.
You're well over the 59 you said you were running, and if that's cash that is on hand, then I will withdraw my concern. I'm just-
Yeah, I mean, I think we got 17 covered. I just gotta work on it. And I have a little bit of extra right there on that page for 18. So that's part of closing that gap. So
Yeah.
we're moving towards closing that gap in 18. But I mean, you know, one point is federal money and state money is going south.
Yeah.
Local money's been staying even, but it needs to go north. And it's a year-to-year thing at this point. You know, doing a 6-year plan, which we need to do from an FDA regulation perspective, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because the future is just too cloudy at this point. But we'll do what we can.
You know, I understand the budget constraints, but our drivers, you know, you might think of a bus driver as like a low-paid worker or something, but these people are they're taking on a tremendous amount of responsibility, and they're facing the public. You know, every time someone gets on the bus, there's a person that they don't know. Well, they know a lot of them, but you know, there's a person with a problem. There's a person who has no money. There's a person who has no change. There's a person who's been drinking or might be carrying a weapon or something. Who knows? These people need even a little bit. I think it'd be counterproductive to, if they're expecting or they believe, or if any one person in this agency knows raises are coming July 1st, everybody knows it. And I guarantee you, everybody knows it. And I think we need to provide it.
Well, Bernie, I agree with you as well with some of the others who said the same thing. And even though you may have not personally vocalized that to them, but they're anticipating that July
Yeah, there's
1st
certainly some.
is going to happen. But maybe we could also say to them that we have a new fiscal year, and then it will not occur in July, but in October. Since we've
going
gone to a
forward.
new fiscal year.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
And they'll know it's going to happen in October.
from a budgetary point of view, it makes more sense to tie it to our fiscal year.
Yeah.
right.
And if we
I agree.
can not do it this year, we at least announce that that's where it's going.
At least some savings on the budget.
Subsequently.
And I agree with that, doing it next year, not this year, because July 1st is right around the corner. I mean, obviously, we're almost there.
Saturday.
I certainly always start.
We could do some kind of stagger too, where we get a small bulk in July and a large bulk in October
Do
first.
we have the
and
money?
then
Do we
do
have
it
the
100%
money?
October
We do have
1st.
the money, well,
I believe we do.
Yeah.
We were
That's all you need.
cutting in other areas besides
all you
wage.
need, whatever you do, it's your decision.
Yeah.
It's your decision, and if you have the money, you do it. If you, years ago, we did it, we didn't have the money.
Right.
You know?
Well, I mean, I guess I say that we have the money, but we don't have the money in 19.
Yeah.
So it's, the long-term sustainability is the bigger issue. But, I think we could still basically maintain our level of service through the end of next year with the money that we have in hand.
Well, you've managed to find a considerable amount of money that prior administrations did not, especially on the capital side. But, we have faith that you will.
So we'll keep fighting it.
I was under the impression 6 months ago that the federal dollars were going to go up as a result of the.
Past act.
Yeah.
And they still may, but doubtful under the current administration.
Yeah.
And,
Nothing's moving.
and it's still all based on the 2010 census. So really, we won't necessarily see any bumps until the 2020 comes out.
And what do we do in the meantime? You're talking about 3.
More.
Right,
I mean, really, 2022 is when that
right.
kicks in. I'm just sort of hopeful that we'll maintain on that side of things. And I've made this point in the past to the council and others, we use that money for operations too much. We need to pay for preventive maintenance and capital out of those funds. And we should be funding the operation locally. Like, if you look at the Columbia system, it's 74% locally funded. We may never get to that point, but we gotta start moving. We're down in the mid-30s.
But I think, looking at what Michelle has sent out, Wilmington bus rides for free. It's
That's
all different
Brunswick,
models.
only Brunswick County.
Yeah.
Only Brunswick County.
Yeah.
Which have we discussed that yet? No, we haven't discussed that
No.
yet. I had something.
So we also in finance talked about the auditor and.
Right. I think that's next.
Do you want me to-
Well, let me ask, before we get there, I was gonna ask if, anything on the KPIs, I know we had a couple items here.
Yeah, we need to look at,
The average fare on demand response, before you, I know you have a bottom line, I know you were gonna look at that 320, did you ever?
yeah, that's gotta be wrong.
It's not wrong. What it is a blip on sales of transit passes
Oh,
get
that's
allocated
right.
back
Oh,
to
that's
routes.
right. Okay.
So it's not incorrect. It's
You're
just, we got a big slug of pass sales coincidentally, when they got reapplied to the routes, that jacked it up over
Over
the
the actual
cost
price.
of the fare, which looks very unusual, but it's actually
It'll work
correct.
itself out.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll come out in the wash.
Sorry. We may want to look at the way we're allocating those to fair transit, because there's not a huge instance of passes used on fair transit.
Okay. I think it's dealt with, but I'll have to look at it.
Nobody did. It's just, the revenue comes into the agency and then we're allocating it across the system. And so we've over allocated fares to fair transit.
It's such a small base too, that if there's much of a blip at all, it makes your stats look good.
We just get some other agencies.
So it'll be interesting to see how June and July pan out from a fare box recovery, because, like that thing with Britain, where they bought a bunch of $10 passes, which is an awesome thing. I think a lot of those folks that they bought on our, on our system were already using the system. So it'll be interesting to see if it just sort of stays stagnant. I'm not sure how many new employees they're bringing in with that program. They were bringing in quite a few new ones in the Williamsburg system. where they started that. But we're thankful they're doing that, we get the money in
Well, and
ahead
they
of
want our
time.
partners for these public meetings too, so that they can use that as a recruiting tool.
Right, and if it takes off, then we should see some increase in ridership as a result.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that question, Brian, said, not to be obtrusive, but, how much you charge per trip? Somebody want,
The base fare is $1.50,
if you went up, I'm just throwing some out there now, I'm just being.
but there's lots of discounts to that.
Taking out the box, cause if you add a dime, unless you be for Ron, he's mathematical genius over here. I'm always thinking of way how you pinch a penny, cause that's what we need to do here now in order to make things work.
Right.
If you add, a certain percent to the fare box, would that overall over a year period of time?
It doesn't, it rarely generates the same percentage in fare box revenue.
Okay.
You get some increase, but you're gonna lose some riders. I mean, it's the whole elasticity of fares, the whole
Okay.
economic deal.
It's a
Which I've
political.
done a lot of work on in my
Okay.
previous career, and we'll do the same for our system at some point.
We hear that we charge too much, and I always have to educate the public on, I understand that, because it's based on their wages, and they're saying we charge too much. Then I also said that if you had to be in the PD and travel here for a job, you'd pay $5 each way. So $2
go to,
each way from Georgetown versus $5 each way, I mean, that's quite a considerable savings.
To go to a $10, $11 an hour job.
That they don't even get to work full shifts.
And it's a political
And they have to
football
leave early,
looking
right?
with fares too, you know, it's, at this point, probably
Well, you know,
not a.
one thing that's gaining traction regionally is there's a lot of people hurting for employees. A lot.
Yeah.
And so, hurting for employees, do you say?
Yes.
They're hurting for employees.
Lots of vacancies.
And so there's lots of vacancies, they're depending on J1s more and more and more. And so I think that conversation could lead to some more situations like the one with Britain. So we're, through the economic development folks and others, we'll get involved in those conversations, but, messing around with a fare box right now is not something we wanna do. I don't wanna hurt ridership in any way at this point, I mean, it's growing, our dollar amounts that are being generated out of the box is growing. We wanna stay in that trend. And the other issue is we don't have the fare box equipment to do anything fancy with our fare structure. So until that happens, we'll do the analysis and see how we compare, but, given the wage rates in this area and everything like that, it's not something that we should mess around with, I think.
Okay. How about philanthropy? I mean, you get about people that got money and
Well,
maybe send letters to people that say
You know,
they
we-
wanna, I mean, anything, philanthropy is good, that coach get a lot of their money, man. I mean, I'm not saying if you're gonna get our money through that, but some people might believe in what you're trying to achieve and they got millions of dollars.
That actually
last-
makes some
and
sense,
last
I
year-
thought about that too.
last year, we had a short conversation about foundations and stuff like that, so that's something that we should look into. Even if it is buying fares or, those types of things, so we'll put that on the list for sure.
I know we had talked about,
Yeah, you'd be
before
surprised
about
if people donate some money to this
Yeah.
program. man.
employer,
Depression and
putting
public
in the
costs for
percentage
whatever
of
reason.
the,
Yeah.
employees, fares. We talked with them lately.
Well, that's exactly what this thing with Britain is they're actually paying for their employees' transportation to and from work. And so they're buying $10 passes, in $10 increments.
What about the hotels?
Well, that's,
Yeah.
they run 10 good hotels. So we're pretty sure that there's an influx of employees going over from other hotels to Britain, that this has caused enough of a ripple in the market that it's gonna force the other hotels to do something similar, I think.
That's a really nice view if that comes through.
And that
Some
is
things are
hopefully
supposed
what
to work.
happens.
In fact, I've got somebody that's a friend of mine that owns a Porsche hotel that she's interested. She's just got the one, but she's interested in doing the same thing.
So we're just kinda sitting back and, hey, we're ready, whatever you wanna do, and we're at the table.
The market drive itself.
Right.
Well, and again, going to the public meetings because of this initial partnership and how we wrote the grant, that particular employer is going to be one of the employers speaking to, as we were just saying, all of the public meetings, along with some educational
We're bringing people
opportunities,
with us to
additional
these
training
meetings.
opportunities, so that we're saying if we're able to start this pilot program and you use our bus, you're able to access now all of these services, including employment.
And what meetings are these? This is economic development meetings?
No, these are the public meetings that we're scheduling.
This is
the
for the
grant.
Loris and Bucksport service.
Okay.
But no, we've had an influx of like the Georgetown EDC, City of Georgetown EDC. We've had several conversations with Georgetown County EDC. You know, we're going to chambers, things like that, and just being there to say, hey, we're ready whenever you guys are, more than anything else.
Well, and I've even offered as part of the travel training, if they, like Revoke Rehab and SC Works, if they have employers who understand that employees need to take transportation, going and educating the employer for our hourly service, when that employee could possibly
How the
be at
shifts
work,
need to be structured.
and how it needs to be done, so that it can be a win-win partnership for all concerned.
Right. And so anybody who rides one of these services from Georgetown or from Loris or from Bucksport, we count them twice because they're getting on the bus here to go down. So
Michelle, have you ever had any contact with the Little River Chamber of Commerce?
I know Jennifer, but I haven't spoken to her about Coast.
Because they're doing a lot of things up there. And if we could get that bus from Lawrence to come down to the hospital and into Little River, and they would give some money, because we've been doing a lot of things up there. That's like our own little town, but it's unincorporated.
Well, I know that Mr. Tinsley, with McLeod, he wants to be at the meeting that we are trying to get scheduled in North Myrtle Beach. So, yeah.
So yeah, McLeod's for sure.
Yeah.
Insider that we'll discuss.
But I don't know if you read about it, but they getting ready to put in a gigantic
Yeah,
medical center throughout this area because of the,
Well, I'm right there in Carolina Forest, so I've seen construction there. I saw an article in the paper, they're having issues
I
with
got a letter
getting the
from
emergency
some
room
doctor.
squared away.
Yeah, letter from some doctor saying what they were gonna put in, and they putting all kind of clinics
Yeah.
up and down the East Coast
Oh, yeah.
because
They're
of
definitely
the
growing.
retirees moving into the
Well,
area.
they're trying to push Myrtle Beach up too, because that's a private and this is nonprofit. McLeod is nonprofit.
Might push Conway out of business if they,
So I don't recall anything else.
We just had some concern expressed watching the demand response rate going in the wrong direction. The passenger per hour
Yeah.
is down to about 0.82, which moves us back. You know, it just has to be monitored.
And that really is a product of scheduling.
Yeah.
So we're
It's sort of within our control if we can get the scheduling.
we're working on it.
That's on page 11.
Yeah.
In the Britons are, they have built a special, right behind Harris, at the motel. They bought a portion of the hotel just for their employees. You know about that? Yeah, so they are buying rooms and stuff, not buying rooms, but they.
Providing rooms. Wow, nice.
Right, so they bought a place and just the employees staying there, people there. So they got to come all the way down here on the buses and stuff.
Which hotels are that?
Right behind Harris.
Okay.
You've been there before, right behind. They bought up half of that hotel and they gutted it out and they got room for the employees going. I seen them going in and out of there, man.
But I think it's supposed to be a J1.
Right.
And they get free room and board in there. Yeah, they just let them stay there.
Just, you know, we're keeping our tabs on this whole conversation about retaining employees, because that is countywide, for sure, region-wide.
When that 15 North, the 8 o'clock 15 North stops at Harry's there,
Yeah,
about 15 people get on.
yeah, I mean, we saw it,
Yeah.
yeah. And Brian, when you get a chance, I got some names I want to refer to you for foundation, if you need them.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
And so the only other thing on KPIs was that the ridership is definitely going in the correct direction, and it'll be interesting to see when that sort of flattens out, because April and May of this year are exact same level of services we had last April and May. And so June will be the same, and so we're comparing apples to apples when we're looking at past months, but you could see from last May, we still had a 3,800 passenger jump in ridership on the fixed route system. So I think a large part of that is increased reliability, even though we've had a hell of a time of it lately. But also the transit center itself has become a bit of an activity center with less homeless and other, you know, deterrents there. Obviously having a nice controlled environment, it's really helped.
Did we get those
We haven't yet, but we'll talk about that in the manager's report.
Okay.
Before we leave finance, one
You
comment.
guys are like a married couple, you don't have to finish your
I knew exactly where we were going with it, and I knew that before I said that. What?
I think Carol had a.
You'll get there, Chick.
Yes, after 2 years of being chair.
Lynette, for the minutes, I'd like to reflect that all credit cards and check by at least 2 board members every month. We look at detail, at least 2 of us do. It looks good, and Ron, I want to thank you, I know you're shorthanded, and appreciate you and Lynette getting it out this week.
So I think that's it for the numbers. We also had a little discussion on audits and auditors. I'll let Brian.
No, you go ahead.
No, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, right. Not a record.
That's a good one.
Doing it short story. We should have put them up in the
Take a second.
Well, we agreed upon an amicable divorce, although the other side doesn't know about it, but it's all right.
They do now.
We're
We
going.
haven't heard from them.
You have heard from?
We have not heard from them. They basically sent us an additional bill for twice the amount that, or we were contractually owed them. And
The auditor sent a bill?
Yeah.
the auditor's not to exceed amount was $27,500.
That was agreed.
They sent us a bill for $55,100.
Oh, my God.
Did you tell them my auditor wouldn't stand for that?
So we fired them,
This new one.
the new one.
Well, we fired him, but
Did the check clear, Ron?
It did not as of yesterday.
you
Okay,
send
the reason why we got this additional amount is because in my conversation with him on like February 24th, he said that he was way over budget. And I said, hey, I get it, we were a heavy lift. If you want to send me a bill for an additional amount, thinking it would be some number less than 10,000, send it to me.
I didn't remember that.
So he sent the extra bill, and we did pay them an additional $6,100 and said, we're done. Which
Good.
our incoming chair did not like the fact that we sent him additional funding, but to me, it was the right thing to do.
He had a bad attitude.
So,
Keep take the high road. RFP is ready to hit the street. It has not hit the street, but it's ready for next year.
So have they cashed that check?
No, not as of
I haven't
yesterday.
checked it as of yet.
We've been watching that hourly as well.
In our letter saying, you know, we've terminated for convenience, so we have that in our agreement. But I talked to the lawyer before we sent that out. So the lawyer wrote the letter. So they're comfortable that we can, we're not gonna have any kickback on this. So,
Because we had a contract with them for how many years?
1 year.
what was it, 5 year?
5 years.
And they got 1 year out of it.
5 year.
And that was his proposal, was to spread out this additional 28,000 over the 5 years. So our rates were gonna go up
We can
$6,000
put it off,
a
we're not
year.
happy with the services. As long as you have a lawyer.
And whether or not he cashed the check is really a moot point to us, we don't care.
Yeah, and then we don't care if cash.
I hope he doesn't.
Yeah.
So,
What's he gonna do with it if he's not gonna cash it?
Well, I'm sure he is going to cash
Frame
it,
it.
Oh.
but it's a moot point as far as our continued relationship.
He's probably talking about how he took us.
so, anyway.
We probably talked about
Well,
how
and
he's
and that was
really-
one of the theories, but, you know, that you wanted to get fired, but I'm not sure why you'd want to do that. so.
Who we talking about here? I'm lost.
This is a new auditor.
Our auditor,
Oh, you missed it. You
Yeah.
came
Yeah,
in.
he missed this whole.
and he did an okay job after much trial and tribulation, but
You did a lot of his work.
that usually happens though.
Yeah, I know.
That usually
I know.
happens.
Ron has
Yeah, but-
spots now with no hair.
Yeah.
What was
I am
lost on
biting
him-
my tongue, and I am not weighing in on this conversation. You don't want to hear what I have to say about it.
I feel better about how this is handled. Now that we've related to you and said.
You have to be phlegmatic about
I
it.
know, I knew we were a heavy lift.
Did you ever go to the doctor's office?
Not that heavy.
They send you something in that, they say something in email, it takes you 2 hours to figure it out and fill it out. Then you go in and they still want you to fill out, and you're doing all the work and then you're paying. It's same with anything, you know?
Think about the stand-up material.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
That's all I had on finance.
All right, I'm good. Any other questions on finance?
I might note that.
You're doing a good
You
job.
already approved it by approving that resolution.
Yes.
last week.
Right, so we are working on our invoice to go
So
to.
it's already done.
Okay. Where are we now?
Finance, general manager's report.
Oh, we didn't get it yet?
I know he's been commenting.
Oh.
Well, and I have a new budget page, a new project page to give to you.
We're gonna get you a new one
But I
of
need
those
to go
light
print it
things.
out because it didn't print out the first time.
Right, we're gonna get you one of those light things like county council has where it's green and then it goes down to yellow.
Yeah.
On a timer.
I would totally arrange that. Can we take a 5-minute recess and then we'll go
Okay.
print this out for you guys?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, Lord. Night or
Are we
something.
ready to continue?
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Right.
Yes, I'm ready, sorry.
Okay.
I was thinking as I was printing this that maybe I should have had you guys do your executive session and I could not interrupt the meeting, but.
When do we have cake?
So the board, the general manager's report centers on the project listing. And there was a few things I know that we talked about. I've been on vacation the last 5 days in Washington. Bring my phone in.
Was it a real vacation or you just?
Yeah, I took the kids to, we took the kids to the Smithsonian. So I got back yesterday
I
and
know
we went
somebody who works
to,
there.
we went
I
to
could contact them.
American history, natural history, the Air and Space, and to the Spy Museum, which was really cool. Really cool. Mhm.
I didn't know we had a spy museum.
So my cover was Dmitry Ivanov.
When we went there, Vincent Rod,
So,
when we
from
went
the
there 4
Ukraine,
years ago,
actually.
they didn't have stuff.
I was there.
It was good.
From Mexico.
And so I've updated this. There might be a few projects that still need to be put on here. So if you see anything that's missing, let me know, but I just want to give you an update on a few things. We sent our letter to FTA to close all of the FMO findings that were due 90 days after the FMO report. They were due on May 3rd. So we sent that to them. We should hopefully get some notification that those are closed at some point. We still got a couple that we still need that had 180-day windows, but we're in pretty good shape as it relates to FMO. Everything highlighted in yellow here has changed. Everything else has not changed. That's what the highlights are for. The MPO agreement, we've got the final version of that. The big issue there is that we're adding Brunswick Transit to the agreement. One thing that I have not broached with GSATs is the possibility of pulling in their administrative fee under 5307. They get about, I don't know, $65,000 to $75,000 a year in 5307 funds to administer the 5307 program because they're the designated recipient. However, they were going to ask me to serve as the oversight for Brunswick Transit. So I believe that we should be able to get those funds because since we're doing the oversight. So I haven't negotiated that yet, but I will be. That really hasn't, that's secondary to the agreement. The agreement just talks about who's doing what. And it's pretty straightforward. It hasn't really changed too much from the last time we signed it.
This is the one I was telling you about, the one, the original, which I had a copy of somewhere, I guess I left it on.
The transit center improvements have not happened yet. We've had a real hard time getting our contractor to give us a set date on when they're gonna do that. Tom Berta has been sort of running that show. He's been spending his time going back and forth to Alabama doing the inspections on these buses, so he hasn't had a lot of time. Plus, they're short-staffed back there, so I'm gonna put that on my list to get them there and get those, at least the ones highlighted in yellow here, those done as soon as possible. So we'll get that squared away. I don't have a date on when it'll get done, but I'll let you all know when we do have a date. Bus purchase is moving forward, as you all saw earlier. We should get 2 more today, and then a fourth bus next week. Speakers are being installed for bus stop annunciation. We have them all on site. And I'll, hopefully have them all installed by the end of, it won't be there by the end of the month. We'll probably slide into July. He's starting with the buses that are down, just because they're here. And we'll move through the system as best we can, and get it should be up and running certainly by the end of next month, end of July. I have a letter for Navistar International to actually going to create a bus sales through the people who sold us those vehicles. We'll be sending that letter out probably next week. There's a few changes I want to make to the letter that was developed by the attorneys. Stop me if you all have any questions.
I have a comment, I guess, not a question, but this thing came about, I think, one of the reasons was I asked these questions continually, and then Rob had his list of things and said, how about the Gantt chart type thing. But I think you've got too much detail in here. I think you've got more than we need. I think it's and I think, if you could make it easier and more readable and more, more, usable, like if you related it to your goals, which I brought along with me. I just think, like Conway, terminal improvements, well, windows and doors. I mean, that's really, I'll look at it, but I don't think it's really, I don't think you need to tell us that. My opinion, unless there's a broken window, I say, when you can fix the window.
So the broken window should go on the list?
No, I don't know. I shouldn't go on the list, but I mean, I would mention it if I saw it. But, I'd say, I don't know.
To be brutally honest, this is helping me tremendously, because even though things are sliding left and right, it keeps it on my radar, and I think the closing of the loop on this will be getting staff more involved.
Okay, I'm good.
In these things.
Yeah.
So to be honest with you,
They're burning.
I love this thing.
Okay, great. I have no problem.
And thank you for making me do
Other
it.
words, Brian don't want you to burn yourself out. That's what he's trying to say.
Well, I mean, honestly, you can see, this is still probably not even a complete list. And you all recognize the fact that there's a ton of stuff that's trying to get done, and as long as you're patient,
yeah, I'm good.
To me, I'm okay with this, because it keeps things on the radar.
This new entertainment shuttle map,
Yeah. Where do you see that? What number is that?
it is number 27.
Yeah.
Introduction.
Actually, it's produced, isn't it? So I should have
We should
highlighted
get
that.
it, we should get it out, shouldn't we, Sue?
It's out.
It's out.
It's out.
I'd like to have a copy if I could get one.
Yeah, I would too.
No problem. Can we get those to them?
Which items?
The entertainment shuttle map. Can you bring a bunch of those in so they can have it? I think we did during committees.
You did, yeah.
But that's okay, we'll get you those. So production's complete, it's even
Thank you,
complete with the LAR component, which is an app that you can put down on your
Yes.
phone, and you hold your phone over our logo
Yes.
and get information about different attractions along the route.
Okay, is this on the ride, because
No,
when
it's not on the ride
Dave was on
systems,
there,
it's-
it was off?
Yeah,
Right.
it's a different app. But take a look at the map and then you can see what we're talking about.
What is this?
You got some tunes going?
Well, I have been riding
war
on the
friend
bus
called,
and
that's
it's
all.
Actually, the LAR is under construction, as we mentioned, and I met with them on Monday to give an under construction message.
Well, I don't think I saw this at the committee meeting, did I?
We didn't have, no, I never saw that.
Becky, you weren't at the finance
You
meeting?
might have seen
No,
the,
no, I
you might have seen the,
Thank you.
Yeah, we had these,
the
at
production
the
version
May
of it.
prior to, that was exactly like what it was gonna look like.
No, I haven't seen
So,
that.
and then it,
I don't remember. But,
We're reading number 29 right there. You've been to the chamber? Yeah, we went to the chamber meeting last week, the chairman's luncheon. The governor spoke.
Oh, this is.
It was a big group, so not a whole lot of stuff happened for us necessarily, but it was good to get up there and show our face. And
thank you.
I did chat with Senator Embry about sort of what's going on with task and some of the things I'm doing with that.
This is nice. I didn't
This
think
is
I've seen
nice,
this.
I could hand these out.
We had these last year.
Yeah, this is the second year. We
Nice.
changed,
I
we
don't
changed it a
remember
little bit.
ever
We
seeing
took the
this.
schedule off of it because we weren't trying to maintain a schedule anymore. We're just saying every 20 to 25 minutes. Use the app for real-time,
I must have missed
real-time
it last year
location.
because I never saw this before, and I have a great.
And we have spots for advertising on that in the future. We need to. Right now, we have the app and then we have the LAR thing.
So that's where the advertisers would actually have the information on a website that they can get
Right.
analytics.
So you, yeah, it's got the new logo on it.
How about the maps for all
Sir,
The
we
system
still
map?
have the system maps, yes, sir, we give those out to the hotels.
Yeah, you want to see that too?
Yeah.
We're gonna ask you for stuff one at a time, so you have to keep going back and forth.
That's okay, that way I get my steps in, right?
Every winter I've ever had, that's how I play. That's how I roll.
This trolley has got.
Can we have some
windows
coffee?
out. Brian, you should have the windows out of this trolley, because people like things like that when they come to the beach.
Those are at every resort.
I
On
know,
the
but I
trolley.
said the windows are in, you should have a picture on there. next
the
to
windows
it.
are in.
Yeah, I know,
Oh,
it's it's sore from.
Okay.
I said, yesterday,
all day.
yesterday I took a bus to
Did you
the
ever
beach.
see
I
this?
don't remember. I
No.
took a bus to the beach at 7 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay,
With the
so
trolley,
here's the
with the
system
windows
maps.
out.
Really? Where were you gonna remember
No, it's on the beach.
Oh, you mean from here? Oh, you went on the,
No, there was 2 buses, but they were full, but one was a dead end. They would have filled them up.
So the last update I have, she's passing out the system map, which is also.
oh, no, we saw that.
We have gotten the planning portion of the bus stop designation program. We've got the planning portion and contract from the state. That's about $100,000 worth of.
I got one more last time.
They are funding it with their PL balance, which is planning funds. All right, let me take a couple steps back. You remember that we were getting, there was a $102,000 grant from the state for facility improvements. And we asked to use those funds for bus stops. They said you can't use it for bus stops, so we
Right.
switched all that over to a lift for cutaways and a bunch of stuff out back that we could take with us when we move. They have since also given us a contract now for, it's $80,000 worth of PL funds, $20,000 worth of match for planning elements associated with the bus stop designation program.
Nice.
So we have got that contract in hand.
Wow.
So they changed their minds?
Well, no, they just found the other money
What's the
to
other money?
subsidize the bus stop.
Wow, they're finding money for us.
So, we have received scope and fee. I'm not sure where, maybe I talked about it at finance, but I was really excited about the pricing structure that AECom offered us on bus stops. Remember we asked for a sort of a low-hanging fruit, easy stop, which at one price, and then, the ones that are heavier lift at a different price. So they've decided they've proposed that they do sort of a packaging process. When we're getting permits for these, we'll probably try to do them in groups. So, if you get a whole slug of them along Keats Highway, let's say, and we can, we're doing 24 of them in one package, that's one rate per bus stop for that package. Let's say we find 4, well, and then there's a package for just 8 bus stops. That is really reserved for the hard ones, the harder, heavier lift. And we can package them into some number up to 8. Say there's 4 really hard ones that need a pad or, other things that need associated with them, then we can put that in one package at a different rate, at a little bit higher rate. So the packaging side of it was a good way to go, and they put some thought into dealing with that. So we have their scope and fee and a contract instrument that they've given us that's I've handed over to the lawyers to look at. There's a few things that we want to change. We've got to get some DBE language in there about paying their sub on time and things like that. So that's all in process. And I really hope to have them under contract by the middle of July.
Any AECom alerted you that feds maybe change the rules, that there's gotta be?
Well, that's not a rule change. That's been in place since 2012.
Urban,
But you
rural?
cannot, we haven't gotten that far yet, but you cannot place a stop that is not ADA accessible. Place a sign. So the sidewalks have to be a certain width, and there have to be curb
We don't have
cuts.
sidewalks.
Well, that's gonna be an issue, so that's just part of the heavier lift
Holy cow.
side of things.
We had a lot that needed curb cuts.
Yeah.
So, there's sidewalks on.
I need to make a comment about this.
Okay.
All right. There's no roadway at the beach on this. No one knows, when you see this, you're thinking, where am I gonna put my car?
On the back, you see that it's actually Ripley's Aquarium is the stop because we already service the guest services at Broadway on our Route 10, and we did not want to confuse the passengers for waiting on which the trolleys versus the buses.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing is, this is designed for people who are already here.
Yeah.
And they've already parked
Well,
their car.
they want them to bring them over.
Right.
Yeah, I know that.
So, but I hear what you're saying. I mean, we might put a P symbol on there next
Local
time.
people, you know.
For parking at the beach.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
for
mean,
parking,
you know, we have a lot of local people who have families here in the summer, and they wanna go down there, but they don't wanna, they wanna have a place to park their car.
I don't think
Right, and they have
Broadway
to
would
know.
would want us to advertise them as a parking lot.
I think
No, we'd have to say that, but they could put, the first one could be Welcome Center. Broadway at
Well, and
the
you have the
beach.
city as well, who has pay lots in downtown. They'd
Of
rather
course they
people
wanna
park
be paid,
there.
yeah, but I tell everybody, don't do that.
Did we
Yeah.
have to put this in?
It's a good point.
Spanish?
Well, I mean, why pay, you
Thought we
know?
were doing something
we
Spanish.
have the route booklets completely in Spanish.
Oh, do we?
And not only those lots are,
So those are
part of
detailed,
what,
and I get those out at the
Yeah,
cans and the
yeah.
tiers.
because I parked it.
And then even with the J1s, we send them out to the Spanish-speaking students.
So I'm hopeful that, we don't have a schedule as it relates to AECom yet, the bus stop thing, but hopefully we'll get that here in July sometime. That'll be their
All
first
signage
product.
on the new buses will be in
And
English.
get you some dates on when we'll start seeing some signs up.
So this money from the state, this $80,000, that's new money, that's it?
It's new money, planning money. So I had to break the project up between actual construction and placing of stops and the planning side. So it's intended to fund the geocoding of the stops and getting the geocoded database of all the locations and what's at each of the stops and stuff like that. It's gonna get us the procedures that we've asked for on placing, moving, and eliminating stops. And there was one other thing, and I guess the scheduling in general.
So why did they give us this money? Did you ask for it, or did they?
Well, yeah, it was part of a bigger request. I mean, we're trying to figure out the funding for the buses as well as, when they said they wouldn't do the stops under that other program, I said, well, what else you got?
Good.
So,
Good
and
idea.
and the biggest issue is that it was, and then they wanted it for maintenance facilities, and they didn't really have any money for construction. And I said, well, I've got planning elements in this project. They say, oh, well, we have planning money.
So is that $100,000 savings somewhere in our budget, or is it just money that had not been identified?
Yeah, I mean, it's not really savings. It's above and beyond what we have. I mean, we're sort of forced the facility grant. I mean, that's stuff that we, aside from the software, that's stuff that we sort of said, okay, we could really use this, and it's something that we could take, but it's not something that we had to have. They weren't must-haves necessarily for us at this point. So that's really the above and beyond stuff. So any other questions about the bus stop designation?
Yeah, I gotta return to that, the AECom. Let's take Route 16, all the flag stops up and down 17. There are no sidewalks. What does this really practically mean? We can't put a sign out there, not just a pad where people can stand, it's gonna be a sidewalk connector?
Well,
I don't understand the impact, right?
We're gonna-
I'm afraid I do.
we're gonna work on it. I don't know that I have the answers for you right now.
Well,
There's
it
places
is-
out there where we can place a stop because they are ADA compliant. The segue was, I had breakfast with John Peterson and Fox Simons over at the city, I guess not last Friday, but the following Friday previous. And, you know, I told him, I was like, look, I might need some help on placing some of these stops because it's supposed to be ADA compliant. And that may mean putting in some curb cuts and things like that, widening some sidewalks, those types of things. And like one place where we really need not only a sign but a shelter is over there off of Highway 15, which is new service for us. And it's not so much because of the high ridership, but we've got complaints about people standing in driveways and things like that. We need to find a designated location for people to wait. There's a sidewalk over there, but we might need a couple curb cuts, you know, those types of things, so people can get to it. And they were amenable to helping us out any way they could. So that was a really good conversation, by the way. They said that they were ecstatic about the transit center, that all of the problems in the city hall were virtually eliminated, and that they felt like our staff was doing a phenomenal job of moving people along and keeping that area sort of more of an activity center and bustling. And I put it right back to him. I said, well, the city's been nothing but great. The police department is helping us with traffic control and not letting people cut through that parking lot and things like that have been kind of been a bit of a safety issue for us. So it's all in all, it's been a win-win across the board.
Back for a minute to item 29. I asked a question, but I don't think I got an answer to what I was interested in. I thought we had a commitment to contact North Myrtle, talk to Maryland, talk to Chamber, whoever would, and try to basically put an ask in front of them in return for some type of service. And that was not what I heard you say in response.
And I did gloss over that a little bit. I don't know that that's what we talked about, what you just said. I'm not sure that's what we talked about, because starting new service in North Myrtle Beach is a heavy lift.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And so there's all sorts of things that we need to happen before we really can do that. But what we did say is we were gonna get back up there and start the conversation again. You know, we didn't get in front of Mark last week because he was busy trying to marshal the governor in and out. But we will go talk to Mark. We're not on an agenda yet.
No, we're just attending on the 17th.
Right.
And then they
But
have
what is
the
the
goal
sense
is
of doing that? Tell me.
to have our face in the audience prior to going in and speaking to them on behalf. And I know we're piggyback. We had someone speak to the mayor on our behalf last week immediately following that lunch on Friday. And then I know that Deb's got some contacts.
This is the city, right? The city
Yeah.
meeting. Yeah, I had some interim information that said that you need to do public comment. 3 minutes. Go in front of them and just say, I'm here. All I'm asking for is to get on the agenda.
We did that.
All I'm asking for.
We've already done that.
We
Yeah, we've
did
already
that.
done that previously,
We did
but
that. I
this
set
is just
that
a
up.
revisit.
Well,
And have some offline conversations and then go and have a full public meeting like what we did in Conway.
So Katie, are you content that we are all on the same page of what we're doing or not doing with
Well,
North Myrtle?
we keep saying, even if we get money from them, we can't have service up there because we don't either have the buses, we don't have the drivers, and he said it was $600,000 we needed, and we're not gonna
to
get.
put service up there correctly,
Right,
to
right.
do something that's
Right.
worth doing, is a $500,000 to $750,000
Right,
deal.
and they're not gonna give you that.
Well, and I wouldn't expect them to give us that.
Right.
But the problem that creates is that, you know, there's only so much federal money going spread across the operation. So we can spread federal money across the operation, but then I need other locals to step up. And that was part of the conversation with Myrtle
Right,
Beach,
Right.
is that it's gonna come a day when North Myrtle Beach is gonna wanna use their portion of the 5307 money, and I'm gonna need more money from the city of
There's
Myrtle
so
Beach in
much-
order to pull that
There's so
off.
much competition between the two.
I know.
Really, and one doesn't want the other one to get ahead of them. And now North Myrtle Beach is getting ahead of them because of the hospital in Little River. And it's pushing their hospital out because everyone from that hospital, not everyone, but many of the doctors, many of the nurses are going up.
Well,
I would think,
I
I
just wanna
would
get
think
back up
that,
there.
I would think that the easiest thing for us to start on would be to go to the chamber in Little River and see what we can do with them. If they see a bus coming down, eventually, into Little River, and then turning around and going back, they're gonna wonder why they're not getting the bus.
Okay, kid, let me ask you a question. I'm just trying to understand something. With the chamber, which is independent organization, the independent versus the municipality, what would the chamber be able to do for this company? I'm asking the question financially.
Well, I don't know, we go to
Well,
the
then-
chamber in North Myrtle Beach, and I don't know, because the chamber in North Myrtle Beach is not, you know, is not like this with the council at all, because they can't get what they want from the council. They want money and they're not getting money.
Well, I just only said that because the chamber, no, I'm sorry, Brian, but I'm gonna emphasize my point. Point is that, I understand what Kid is saying, the chamber could, Little River Chamber is independent and then in unincorporated areas where you live at,
Right.
nice area. But the most they can probably do is probably influence council, to probably give them more money.
Right, they have
That's all
Worley.
they can do
They
that.
have Worley on council, and
Right.
they're friendly with him, and probably if he had some support up there, he would go along with it.
But, and I want to also emphasize, and it's very important that I stress this, because when I come to the meeting, I want to see how we can better ourselves. I think everybody has the strength to really want to move forward.
Well, they also have a, you know, they have that big medical center that a lot of the Hispanics go to. Just before you go into Calabash.
Oh, yeah, I'm talking about.
And that is that's.
On the right-hand side.
Yes, because they had millions of dollars to build that a couple of years ago.
So what I'm hearing you say is that if we get service to Little River, then people in North Myrtle Beach will want service.
I think so.
Okay, that may be true, but the issue is total
Economy.
I
expense.
know
Of
that,
doing
I
the
know that,
service.
but you
So-
got Lars now.
Yeah, and it's just a route from here, from this location up to
Yeah.
Loris and back. So we're not doing anything on Route 9.
No.
So if
But
you
if
will
you
think,
could
if
get-
you will
but if
think
you-
back, if you will think, give me a second. If you will think back to our vision as a board that we did over at the chamber, we had all of that taken care of. We had North Myrtle Beach, we had Loris, we had Route 9, we had the whole
Right.
thing covered. But I need 2.7 million in local funds at a minimum in order to pull that off,
Well,
all right?
it won't hurt to go talk to the chamber in Little River and see what they come up with, because
And I
they're
agree
doing
with you.
they're doing big things up there. I
The-
mean,
What I want to tell council up there and the chamber is that, look, all we're doing right now is running our service the best way that we know how to run it. And get to a point in our estimation where we can grow. And then talk to them about what it's gonna take to put a reasonable level of service in North Myrtle Beach.
Right.
And the point that I think you made very eloquently a couple months ago was, we just need to keep the conversation going.
right.
And that's my goal at this point, because really, we couldn't open up a hot dog stand.
Well, I
In North Myrtle Beach
understand
right
that.
now.
I understand that.
Well, I think it's very valuable, what Michelle was saying, and Deb too, and you now.
Right.
To keep on going, public comment, be in the audience.
And I had
shake
been up there in a
hands.
year.
Well, I'm in the audience.
Yeah. But let
They
me,
wave to me.
but Brian, did,
Well, I think, we all need, or others need to
Well,
be,
no, I hate to intercede, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I'm just thinking though, that now that we have Loris, not that, but now that we have Loris, isn't that sort of more of an anchor point? No, it's not at all, you don't
No, the
think?
anchor point for North Myrtle Beach is coming up from 82nd Parkway.
Right.
It's just going up and
Going
down
up
the
that
coast. Now, there might be some people who would be interested in jobs in North Myrtle Beach, so eventually having that route from Loris around Route 9.
And what do your
and
drivers,
then
and what
Seacoast
do
and
your
those
drivers
places.
tell you? Your drivers
They have
tell you that the most
everyone around
asked
from
about,
Huge.
the most asked about place to go to is North Myrtle Beach.
And you know who's
Say that
asking
for
though?
years.
You know who's asking though?
What?
J1 students.
No.
Coming from
Well-
Myrtle Beach up to North Myrtle Beach to jobs.
And
Yeah.
I've already found out that, like, Bill Grice and Frank
Time
Bowman,
out.
they offer shuttle services for their J1s.
Really?
So we're still trying to have a North Myrtle Beach meeting with the other hoteliers who are using J1s but may not be offering those services.
Right.
Okay, so this is maybe useful to you as kind of a to-do list. Originally, we had envisioned it as a project list. These are the major projects that we want to get accomplished this year or the next 2 years, so that nothing falls, you know, under the table or wherever things fall. So it seems to me that the communication with North Myrtle is not a project. It seems to me that is a continuing public relations need,
Right.
just as you have to get down to Georgetown, as you have to get in front of the city, and so I wouldn't put it on this list for our purposes as a board.
Okay.
And I mistakenly assumed there was a commitment to, you know, to do something outside the scope of sort of just general staying in touch with North Myrtle, or for that matter, with Little River.
You know, over the years, we have set up things. We went there, I guess, just before Myers left, and we asked for a nickel from when the hotel people, when their people came in, their patrons came in, to add a nickel to their thing. Well, the mayor said, oh, let's add a dime because we'll take a nickel. Because somewhere along the line, like Kavanaugh thinks that they should make a profit. And I said, why would you make a profit? Because I know he's mentioned it to you.
Yeah.
Because we don't make a profit. Why do you think you should make a
Right.
profit? And
A nickel
and we heard nothing.
Room nights.
But after a couple of years, what happens? The chambers went to them and they got $1 put on every patron that came into the hotel.
Right.
That was in 2012.
Yes, so they got $1. We couldn't get a nickel.
Well, it's not a project, it's
tough nut to crack.
And
But
we
I hear
don't
what
need
you're
to be
saying.
hounding you about it. It's not, I don't think it rises to the level of a project. It might rise to the level of your to-do list of things to
Right.
periodically sort of check in on.
Right.
But, and I think that's where Bernie
And
was
we're gonna
going.
get better up there. And keep
Brian,
the
I think
conversation
what
going.
I want to emphasize, that's what y'all about, emphasize the work, because this has been so, you know, it's tough because kids have been trying to get some things done in North Myrtle Beach. But the working class, if you look at the geography of North Myrtle Beach 10, 12 years ago, maybe a little longer, there's a lot of conservative retirement people. But now it's more working class that's coming into that area now, because they got the
Right.
ballpark, people coming out. If you look at demographics, you look at the migration that's coming into that area, there's a working
Yeah.
class of people down there now.
Yeah.
The mayor, they feel they needed the buses, but now people are working in that area. I would do a study on it and before I go there and look at the working class, because I have people call me all the time about that.
A study was done, I think, a few years ago,
Right.
wasn't it, with the county?
Well, and-
In North Myrtle Beach, where I live, we had all seniors. They're all going into senior centers or whatever. We're getting young people in there, really young, a lot of children and all, which we never had before.
Well, and that's something that Councilman Kavanaugh and I did speak about, doing another study.
Right.
You know, doing something that updates that information, and I really think that something similar to the entertainment shuttle makes a lot of sense. You gotta connect down to the 15 North, and then there's something circulating around, you know, goes inland a little bit along Robert Edge to some of those neighborhoods and that type of thing. And that was all part of the vision that we put together, that was all, including your Little River commuter
Yeah,
lines. So, you know, and there would be some sort of central point in North Myrtle Beach where those buses would converge, and you'd have the connection down to the Myrtle Beach system. So I think it's there, I think it's needed. I mean, there's no doubt it's needed, it's just a matter of
but it's
financing
a
it.
system like you have in Myrtle Beach.
Right.
It's big.
It's coming,
I
though.
understand that, I
It's coming,
understand
though.
that. If
We'll
we
get
could
there.
only get the hotels to shell out a little money, we could have an entertainment trolley around here. We could have it, but they're not gonna do that.
Right. You're right,
We've
we could
gone
do
through
that
it.
without doing
We've-
the other stuff.
Right, we've been going through that, we've been talking about it for years, and it goes nowhere.
Right.
Well, the fact that we're not getting any funding for the entertainment shuttle that we are running, I don't want to.
Yeah, we want to repeat
A second,
Right, right,
you know,
right.
between
No,
Laura's
no.
Bucksport entertainment shuttle, we've got a lot of over-committed relative to the cash.
Right,
Right.
we have council up there who says, oh yes, we need buses, we need service, we need this, they all say that. But that's as far as it goes,
Yeah.
you know, that's as far as it goes.
And there's been
And I've
one
been
like
hitting
this
my
one.
head against the wall for 17 years now. I got $25,000 out of it once, that's all I got.
It's been going like that for 30, 40 years.
did, yes, we didn't get anything. Right, I think that's the only thing we ever got from them was 25,000. We got, at one time, we were given 30,000, but Sugarloo, we went up there with Sugarloo, and he wouldn't tell them what he was gonna spend the money on, so they didn't write the check.
Michelle, not correct, are these being displayed in hotels and places?
We distribute them to the hotels and the welcome centers.
Because you got some more of these, I've had some people I know in restaurants and stuff. You won't do that. I mean, I know people
Yeah,
that they
if you
put them
want
up
to
on the
just
wall
send us
like Harry's or something like that or
The
something.
email, you can send us the email so we can get them out.
Okay,
We'll just add that to our distribution list because we try to follow up with them and, or have them.
how they do that real nice. They be people I know at restaurants put them in
That's what you
there.
would use your CAC for, things like that, that's what it was used for.
Okay.
That's all I had for general manager's report.
Is the
That
time
was
card,
enough.
Brian, is the time card project on here?
The,
Time card.
payroll RFP should be on
For
here.
the time clock, right.
Where-
Did that ever go out? It went out?
It's at state for approval.
Where is it?
It's not on here. I will get it on here.
You need another paper.
Well, you can take the forklift off. We know that you're looking for that.
Yeah.
That's part of your project.
I knew I had one on here. Payroll RFP.
And you
So
see
that's at the
with-
state level.
And you see in North Mobile, without a line going up there, we can't have paratransit. And that's what we really need to.
Well, you could,
And-
but
But we lose a lot of money each one of those, though, don't we?
Yeah,
But we
yeah.
really, you know,
I drive two ladies up there to Reno dialysis.
yeah. I know you do,
What?
I know you do.
For the
Did we
record,
get resolution?
the record will show that Daryl maintains a few ladies up in North Myrtle. Okay? Not things we usually
not
announce.
not just North Myrtle Beach either.
No, I'm getting the
He
feeling.
Other
drives, he
ports are
drives
called.
some other
Yeah.
places too. He's always driving. You need
Okay.
if you need a gentleman, call Daryl.
We'll get a chance to look at the signs that they're gonna put up.
That's correct, sir.
I'm gonna get the signs for the bus stops.
Yeah, but.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the consultant to weigh in on those, but yeah, we have a design in mind. It's pretty basic, but I wanna make sure it's meets standards. So we're gonna have the consultant weigh in on that.
So these signs aren't gonna be up in June.
As soon as I get them on board, we'll get you
No,
scheduled.
messaging.
I'm not setting any more expectations on that, I've been warned.
I have one other thing, I was over at the transfer center. Would it be nice, it would look nice if they put some kind of a structure in front of the street?
Yeah,
Was that in the project?
it's, is it on the list? We had some plans for landscaping, but I'm holding off until we have a better handle on budget. More
Just
details.
go out and buy 4 on sale and set them in the front and dig a hole.
We gotta do some other, we gotta put gutters on that's not handling water very well, things like that, so those are kind of above for landscaping. We gotta do something on the underside of the porch, at the very least, we're gonna put some lattice or something in there so that it's not open for the So we'll get something
I wonder if the city would agree to do the landscape.
We might.
It just seems that they do landscaping as a routine part of a number of city functions. I don't think that's something you're gonna have.
Well, you know,
They have a
there's
garden-
sidewalk
They have a
language
garden
too.
club in, they have a garden club in Myrtle Beach, I'd probably be happy to come and plant some flowers or something there.
Okay, let's
With the
move on
bus
to
stop signs,
resolutions.
Mr. Gonzalez. With the bus stop signs, does that mean that we're only at this point going to look at spots where there are sidewalks?
To be determined. I think there are some allowances for rural areas and other places for that, but we don't know yet. So I'll let you know. But what that whole rule does is it pushes a bunch of what we thought would be really easies to the hard ones.
Yeah.
That's all. So it might just slow us down more than anything else. I mean, I don't see how they can enforce that out on Route 41.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, in Choppy Road and some of those other areas, so we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
Some variance.
We got a resolution number June 2017-15, approval of the MPO report.
The Waccamaw Regional Transportation Authority Resolution number June 2017-15, authorization to accept NPO agreement from GSATs.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to add resolution number June 2017-15.
On the
Second.
Second. Okay, do we have any discussion on it? There being none, have a vote on it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against? There being none, the motion is approved.
Okay.
When you sign the resolution,
I don't think we signed that.
yes, sir,
Signed it as a,
you sign right there and
okay.
this is a copy.
If it's bylaws, I think in June 2017 that we got today, that includes the positions that we already talked
Yes, so
about.
that's all the changes that we,
Okay. Will you open up everyone got a copy of the revised revisions. And again, that we went over at last board meeting, and they've been changed to what the board and the three board members here recommended. This morning, I understand from Article 11 amendments, I have been requested to ask you if we should delete for the last paragraph of Article 11 amendments, any notice of a meeting. Because it's very confusing, I went through it this month, it's very confusing, and I don't think it's necessary. That's my opinion. The other board members, the committee members, what do you think?
which one is it?
Page 15,
Page
Article
15,
11.
amendments.
What is our legal requirement as a public board for the amount of time we must issue
2 days.
a notice, 48 hours?
Yeah.
I think we either need to remove that or put in it who is to be notified. The board, the press,
Because it doesn't make much sense.
yeah. I think it could be removed.
What do you think, Billie Jean? Because I went through that this month, I thought I gave you 10 days, and then the articles that we changed were not posted yet to you.
I think we should eliminate the paragraph.
I do too, and I think just let it stand the way the first paragraph. That's
Is the
my
first
opinion.
paragraph, just from a
First
legal
or second
standpoint,
paragraph?
Second paragraph.
does it mention?
There's the 10-day
the
requirement.
notice for the meeting?
Want to remove that?
And the public doesn't have to be notified.
But we do have to do that, that's why I'm asking, that we just need to at least state in our bylaws per South Carolina law or federal
Well,
law.
This is regarding amendments to the bylaws.
It's not a meeting.
I don't think
It's not a
that-
meeting notice, but.
No, it's not a
yeah.
meeting, and I don't see why it has to be, who has to be
It's
notified?
not clear if
It
it's.
is a meeting if we're going
Yeah.
to amend the bylaws.
Yeah, that's a
You have-
meeting
It's a
anyway.
vote, it's at a publicly advertised
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
So,
But the
And we
first
do
does-
that, but this would be to notify, so that all the board of directors knows that we're having a meeting regarding amendments to the bylaws.
It doesn't say that, no, but it
No,
could say
it,
that.
it should,
Because we couldn't figure out who was supposed to be notified according to this last.
I interpreted it to be the public, so I really misread it.
Yeah, I did too. I did too.
Well, I thought it was the board members.
that the board members get
Yes.
10 days notice?
yes.
But there's nothing that we do is private anyway, so
Yeah.
everything is public. I'm except for executive session, but everything else is open.
I might suggest that in the previous paragraph, these bylaws may be amended or repealed at a properly advertised public meeting of the board.
Or
And new
maybe-
bylaws may, do it that way.
Okay. Fine
And then
with
you
me.
can delete the second paragraph.
All right, why don't we do the words now, and then we can vote on it next month? Is that what-
Again, can't we just vote on it now?
Yeah, oh, we can't vote,
No, I'll go ahead and make the changes and email them out to
Right.
everybody.
That'd be
And
good.
then we'll vote on them at the
Right.
next board meeting.
Okay.
But then you get hand up.
Clarify for me, are we having specific language about the amending of the bylaws? Or are we just simply saying that any amendment of the bylaws should occur in a regularly scheduled meeting
Well,
or properly noticed?
properly scheduled.
Properly
Yeah.
advertised.
Okay, that's fine.
Right.
The meeting is gonna be advertised anyway.
Yeah,
The only time, and even if it's the bylaws committee meeting
yeah.
to go over amendments that they might wanna add, that meeting is going to be announced to the press anyway, because it's a committee meeting and we announce all of those anyway.
and to the
Okay,
board.
bylaws committee,
Yes.
what's your feeling on this? I want your feeling before we go ahead with this.
Yeah.
I think the board should be included in it.
Well, we present it to the board, you'll be
Mhm.
So
presenting.
you have to put
next-
opinions right now, I mean, from the board members right now.
I just want the opinion of the committee and then we'll present it to the board, okay?
But what I'm saying is that you're interjecting something here that all of us inclusive in it, because we all throwing out ideas to everybody right now. This is not a committee meeting, this is a board meeting. So suggestion that I'm saying, we all got opinions on certain things here.
I think what Kitty's getting at is the committees meet and vote on what they want to present to the entire
I
board.
understand what you're saying,
So
but she asking
that's
a
what-
question, right
Yeah.
now about the committee members, there's not a time to do that.
Well,
That's my
we don't
point.
want to extend this to 2 more months.
All right, my opinion is we can strike that in the second paragraph, that we're all covered, you know. Every
Really,
meeting will
Jean?
be advertised.
And then I will present it to the rest of you, right, after that?
So we're gonna state the correct second paragraph.
Where is it stated that is this a federal law? What kind of law is this about the bylaws? I never heard that
It's not a
before.
federal
No,
law.
I think the law, the
It
law is about the
refers to a
meeting.
section.
Oh, about the meeting.
Yeah, these
not the
bylaws are,
Yeah, right.
I guess subject to state
The state,
legislation.
Yeah, it
too.
actually mentions,
In the front, right.
regulation, United States Code, USC, the Internal Revenue Code, and the South Carolina Code is mentioned in another part of it too.
Okay. Right.
There is no 10-day requirement or notice requirement for amending the bylaws.
We will double check that.
Yeah.
And if there's not, then I just suggest we scrap the paragraph.
I think that part was added by the group. I don't think there's any group that dictates that that has to be, but
Well,
we'll
that
get-
has,
we'll
that
get
has
Henry to
been
verify
there,
that.
that has been there, I've been doing the bylaws.
I know
for
that's
17
been there
years,
forever.
And that has been there since I remember,
Mhm.
right.
but let me apologize to Kitty. First of all, I'm not trying to be smart, I'm just
No, I
saying.
don't, I don't want people to say that I don't clear it with the committee, that I just say it on my own. I have a committee, they have a.
But let me clear myself up, okay, Kitty, so
All right.
you understand where I'm coming from. What I'm saying is that she already said that she's gonna make the corrections on it already. If you need to talk to the committee prior to come back to this meeting, that's different, but to say that after committee corrections now, she's gonna make the change that she said she's gonna make. That should solve the problem right there. She said she's gonna make the changes, so she's gonna send out
Well,
the
I
changes.
can only do the changes that Kitty is the chairman of the committee.
I understand
I
that.
don't think it's any issue with her asking
Uh-uh,
them for their
no,
opinion
not
here.
at all.
I really don't.
No.
But then she needs to open it up to the full board, which
Yes,
she's, I
yes.
guess, doing.
If you look in Article 3 under organization, it says that the authority shall be a nonprofit governmental organization established and operating in accordance with the Regional Transportation Authority laws, sections 58-25-10,
State code.
and that's the state code.
That's what
Right.
governs these
Yeah.
bylaws.
And I'll look and, I've got a copy of
Yeah,
the
I'll
state
look
code
at
and I'll
it.
look
Well,
at
and
it.
the
and see if
code
it
is
does
not-
anything. I don't think it specifies that.
It's pretty silent on
Probably
this stuff.
not.
I guess.
I think that's something that
Okay.
But we'll double
we
check
put
with
in,
Henry.
but we'll check.
Catherine,
Do I have any input from the board on this?
on that one item or all the bylaws?
No, on that one item.
I think you did a great job.
I think it's a good job too.
Very good.
Now, do you have? a-
Article 9, request, what did we
We
decide
finished
on
with number
citizen?
11? Yes.
Yes, we
Okay.
decided, what are you going to do, what are you going to put on that, she's gonna look up the law first.
We're going, these bylaws may be amended or repealed at a properly advertised meeting of the board, and new bylaws may be adopted.
That is not
Therefore,
necessary.
and then get rid of the
It's not
second
necessary to
paragraph.
say at a properly noticed
Right.
meeting of the board.
Right.
Everything the board does is at a properly noticed meeting of the board.
So we just take that out. Thank you.
One last
So we're
thing.
just deleting that second paragraph of that section.
Right. And who is that, Henry? That's
Yeah.
a new lawyer we have?
No, she's not new.
Oh.
She can look at it and make sure we're not.
Henrietta, you mean Henrietta?
Henrietta.
Oh, Goldie, yeah.
Henrietta
Okay.
Golden.
I didn't
Now,
recognize
what
it.
was yours?
Refresh me on Article 9, Citizen Advisory Committee. If we don't have, what did we discussed this for?
We changed the first paragraph.
Did we-
Should a citizens advisory committee become necessary?
Oh, that's, okay, gotcha. You answered my question. The
Mhm.
should means we don't have to have
Yeah.
one. We have to have-
Exactly.
That was
Perfect.
the reason for the
Gotcha.
change.
Just,
Okay,
just putting that
Good
little
deal.
thing in there.
all right.
And I just brought in a, are you here? Yeah, charter. I just brought in the charter for their last one that I found.
Oh, you found it?
Yeah, well, yeah, you'd be surprised what I find.
Find the seal.
You trying to steal Bernie's role as archivist?
And I gave it because she has not seen it, and she doesn't have any backup on this, so I
Kenny, did
gave
you
that.
find the seal?
Huh?
Did you
No,
find
I
the
didn't
seal?
find Okay,
Okay.
any other comments?
If there any way, and it might not be possible, any committee that has adopted from that committee prior to the meeting, like the bylaw, for example, it I'm not confusing if we get emails to the board that they have any idea, if they may be a word that you
We
might.
did that already.
No,
We did that
I'm
2 months
saying-
ago.
I'm just,
All right,
independently,
yeah.
I'm just saying that will clear up the problem we having here now, because when we come to the, because you already, the whole board already know pretty much what's gonna happen, because you already adopted the rule. And so we come and sit down, there shouldn't be no argument or contention about what the verdict, because we already all don't see it.
2 months ago, Lynette sent out a copy of it, and I requested from all board members to read it over, and when we came to the next board meeting, if there were anything that they thought should be changed, that they were to tell me, right? So, we did that,
Okay, thank you.
Well, let me ask you one question, Madam Chairman. If, with the deletion of that second paragraph of the 11th article, are you going to bring it to a vote next month?
Yes.
Yes. Next month, we're gonna have a vote on this.
I'm gonna make that change, send it out again to everybody,
You
so
look
that
it
everybody
over,
has a chance to look it over, and then,
we'll vote on it next month.
Just that one page.
Right.
No, we'll vote
No,
on
the
the
whole
whole
thing.
I know I'm saying the change,
The
you're not
change,
saying
yeah,
the whole
just that.
thing. Just that
Let's send that
one
one
Just that
page,
paragraph.
let's send it.
And in the interim, we'll have you.
all the other changes have already been
Make
made.
sure we're
Right,
not violating
right,
any rule.
Yeah.
Right.
Brian, now that you've bought the sun, you could make that the seal.
Yeah,
All right.
If you look at page 18, we did combined service and tax committee, and it's the only committee that has come.
Page what?
18.
In anticipation of the upcoming changes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful
Well, that'll be,
that,
that won't be up to you, that'll be,
I'm hopeful that Lily Jean will.
Come in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Hopefully
You
sooner.
can talk to God, you can run the service and, you know, it's easier.
Okay, all right. And these people that are put on these different, this is a question, committees, that is done by the chair, is that correct?
Right.
That's how we've been.
Right, that's the way it should be, that's right.
So I guess we need to get together, everyone, and We just want to be on
Next week.
Also,
Okay,
go ahead.
Yes, no.
Also, Lily attended a meeting in Georgetown.
Yes.
For,
And hopefully she'll continue to do that.
okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure that I clarify that.
I had dinner there once, wasn't much. Oh, really?
No vegetarian.
Yeah, fried chicken.
We're gonna transfer the gavel?
Yeah,
so
remember that you were
we're
gonna,
doing
you're
executive
gonna
session.
stand
I didn't know how to do it with sauerkraut.
Okay.
She's
getting
We can do the
Stewart's
gavel.
used to have in New Jersey, Stewart's always had a
And
hot
then,
dog
next month you
with
will,
sauerkraut.
Transfer the gavel.
transfer it
The
back.
drive-in says that they put it outside of the
Rob had the same idea you did.
I was gonna have
Throw
you
it
stand
at
on
him.
one side.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll go.
You guys need to stand up front, and you actually take the gavel.
By the way, I'm gonna
Pass it
sit
over
this
to
way,
Wait a minute.
looking at you all, because I can't hear worth a damn anyways.
Actually, next month, you'll be sitting over here, and Ms. Rykoff will be sitting over there.
No, actually, next month I'll sit here.
That's fine.
That way I can read lips.
Wait a minute, we're gonna get a picture.
Although on all other things, I would make
I
you a
think
professor.
we, get him a hearing aid for a horn.
I have hearing aids, but I hate them.
I've always wanted to have this done formally, and nobody would ever indulge me,
Oh,
so.
yes.
But I think we really need to do
Let's
it.
indulge
So I can
with
take
it.
a nice
Get closer
picture, because I'm
to
gonna
the-
do something with it.
Closer.
I don't know
Transfer
what.
the gavel.
Okay,
Wait a minute, don't do anything
all
yet.
right. We're looking out that way, we're looking at each other.
Look at each
Either
other.
way.
Sarah, can you take a step,
Look at
Sarah,
that.
take one step closer to
One
us.
step closer.
Don't be scared of each other.
This is going on Facebook, look pretty.
Yes, it is.
Look pretty.
Look over here, both of you.
People like talk.
report.
All right. Got
We're
it.
already stating that we're not using pronouns and
It's
he's
going on
and
our
she's.
webpage
Oh,
and
thank you.
All
everywhere.
right.
All right.
Do it again. Hey, do it again, pass it again.
What about,
What?
don't we,
Ready?
don't we install,
Okay.
we don't install
But it's
the,
got it moving in.
No?
Yes, wait 2 years.
You'll take his place.
I thought we
So did
installed
you
them
do
as
All right.
We made an announcement.
Yeah, you don't get to keep it.
No, I didn't think so.
Take care of it.
I know who's the
I'm
boss.
the custodian.
She can rip it out of his hand.
Right here, just a minute, Mr. Lazar.
Okay.
You won't take pictures of them.
We wanted to present you with a plaque that says, presented to Joseph Rivera in appreciation for your commitment and service as chairman of the board of directors. Of course, we're expecting that commitment to continue as a regular board member. July 2015 through June 2017, Waccamaw Regional Transportation Authority, June 28, 2017. Thank you so much. It's been a good 2 years. It's been a really good 2 years.
And enjoy working
Not
with
quite
all
as
of you.
nice as the one with your picture.
Thank you for all your help.
Do you know, when I
Thank you,
left
Joe.
being a board, all I got was abuse. I didn't get anything.
Well, your days over.
I wasn't here then.
I know. I
Hey,
didn't
go on,
get
man,
a
go.
thing.
I'm about to pay you.
I think you did. I
We
believe
can
you
go
did.
back to those days.
When I started here, Mr. Wilson
Mine about
was the
50
chair.
years ago.
Right, my vice chair, right.
He was chair, and then Mr. Silverman,
Yeah.
and now Mr. Lazara.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
I've got to go.
Okay,
Okay.
take care, Michelle. Do a good
All
job.
right, do we have any other matters?
Well,
We go to executive session.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going through the thing. Okay.
Now,
So we'll go.
And
who's gonna handle
afterwards,
this then? Now that I transferred the gavel to him, is he gonna handle it?
No, you got.
You've got until the end of the
All
month.
right, okay.
You have until the 30th.
Okay.
They
All
need-
right, well, I just
Complete
wanted
the job.
So just turn the gavel back.
Okay, all right.
You want as many as you can, but it's up to you.
when you guys finish your executive session, we'll bring the cake in here and cut it.
Okay.
Have some cake and
All
coffee.
right, I move we go into executive session for personnel.
Well, we got some old business, new business, don't we?
We did.
Yes, after we come back.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have new business.
Brian, you coming out too?
Yeah.
Okay, old business.
Yeah, now.
Is it old business
Well, it's
already?
off. I'm
Yeah,
leaving it
we'll
there, but it is turned
All
off.
right, we'll go on to
So wait a minute, we gotta get the camera.
Get a second. Do we have a second and a vote on going? into
Second.
executive session?
Second. Okay, any nays? No? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.